When my son was born, I named him Leo with love. Now my sister is accusing me of being selfish for not letting her use it too. I, 31F, had my first baby, a boy, 3 months ago. My husband and I had picked out his name, Leo, long before he was born. It's a name we both love, and we didn't share it with anyone until he was born to keep it special between us. Recently, my sister, 28F, announced that she and her husband are expecting their first child, a boy, and she was thrilled to tell everyone they'd chosen the name Leo for him. When I reminded her that my son's name is already Leo, she seemed genuinely shocked, saying she totally forgot and thought it wouldn't matter if we shared the name. I gently told her that I wasn't comfortable with our sons having the exact same name, especially since we're close and the cousins would likely see each other often. She got upset, saying I was being territorial and that I don't own the name. My mom is now asking me to consider changing my baby's name or letting it go so my sister can use it too. I feel frustrated because this was the name my husband and I carefully picked, and now I'm being made to feel like I'm causing family drama over it. I've refused to change his name, but now some family members think I'm being difficult. Ada for not changing my son's name even though my sister now wants to use it? Update 1. Alright, so here's the latest. After standing my ground about my son Leo's name, things at family gatherings have become pretty tense, to say the least. My sister hasn't let it go even a little bit. She's been throwing me these passive-aggressive comments every time we're together like, "Oh, our Leo is going to have such a great personality, don't you think?" Or, "I can't wait for little Leo to meet all his little cousins." It's awkward because technically she hasn't named her baby yet, but she's already talking about him as if Leo is set in stone. I can tell it's her way of pressuring me into giving in, and honestly, it's exhausting. The whole thing escalated further last weekend at a family dinner. My mom decided to stage what I can only describe as an intervention to get me to reconsider. She tried to be subtle at first, but eventually it turned into a whole speech about how, as sisters, we should share everything and support each other's happiness. She looked right at me, practically begging me to see things from a sister's perspective. My sister, of course, sat there looking all innocent, nodding along like she hadn't been stirring the pot. Then Mom dropped the big one, suggesting that maybe I should consider changing Leo's name to his middle name instead, which is Thomas. She actually said, "Thomas is such a strong name, don't you think?" And started listing all these famous Thomases she thought would inspire me to see it as a better choice. I was completely stunned. My husband looked like he was ready to bolt from the table, and I just kind of sat there trying to process it all. After a long silence, I told everyone that my husband and I chose the name Leo because it was special to us, and we had no intention of changing it. I made it clear that this wasn't about being territorial or selfish. I just don't see why my son should have to change his name when he's already here, named, and part of this family. My mom sighed and shook her head, like she was deeply disappointed in me, which hurt more than I'd like to admit. But it was my sister's reaction that really took the cake. She suddenly burst into tears and started going on about how I was ruining her experience of naming her first child. She said she felt completely disregarded and like her happiness didn't matter to me. She even accused me of hoarding the name just to make her life difficult. I was honestly speechless, and at that point, I didn't even know what to say to her anymore. It was like no amount of explaining would make her see things from my perspective. The whole family got involved, and everyone seemed to be split down the middle. Some of them think I should just let it go, that it's just a name and not worth all the stress. But others actually agree with me, saying it's unfair for her to suddenly decide she wants the same name I've already given to my child. My dad, usually the most level-headed one, suggested we come up with a compromise where her son's middle name could be Leo instead, and she could pick something different for the first name. But my sister shot that idea down immediately, saying it wasn't the same. She said she had always dreamed of having a little boy named Leo and that using it as a middle name would make her feel like she was settling for leftovers. She got pretty worked up to the point where she had to leave the room to cool off, but I could hear her crying in the hallway. Meanwhile, my mom kept giving me that disappointed look, clearly siding with her. The tension has become so intense that my husband and I decided to leave early that night, just to avoid any more drama. I was honestly at my breaking point. I love my family, but this constant pressure and guilt-tripping are exhausting. I thought things would calm down after that, but nope. My sister has been doubling down. She's now sending me long texts about how she's always felt like I don't support her, or that I'm always one-upping her. She brought up all these random incidents from our childhood, like the time we both wanted the same doll, and our parents gave it to me because I was older. She said that this Leo situation is just another example of me taking what she wants and making it my own. She even said she felt like I owed her this name to make up for all the times I got my way. Honestly, reading those messages made me feel like I was in some weird alternate reality where every childhood squabble has turned into a lifelong grudge. It's like she's dredging up all this old resentment and projecting it onto the name Leo. Then, last night, I got a call from my mom, who said she's genuinely worried about my sister's mental health over this. She actually told me that my sister is feeling unheard and isolated, and that maybe I should be the bigger person to keep the peace. She's now suggesting I go back to the drawing board and maybe consider a completely new name. I asked her why my sister couldn't just do the same, and she said something like, "She's already too attached to it. You know how sensitive she is." I feel like I'm being guilt-tripped at every turn, like somehow I'm responsible for managing my sister's emotions just because I chose a name that she also likes. It's all getting so out of hand that I'm starting to question my own sanity. Part of me feels like maybe I should just give in to make it all stop, but every time I imagine changing my son's name, it feels wrong. He's Leo to me. That's who he is. My husband, bless him, is furious. He thinks my family is completely out of line and has been encouraging me to stay strong. He even said he's willing to talk to my family himself if I'm feeling too overwhelmed, which is honestly such a relief. I know he has my back, and that helps, but it doesn't make the rest of this mess any easier to deal with. It feels like my family is holding me responsible for my sister's happiness and emotional stability, which is a pretty big burden to bear. At this point, I'm at a loss. I don't want to cause more drama, but I also don't want to set a precedent where I have to give up something meaningful every time my sister decides she wants it too. And honestly, part of me wonders if this is really about the name at all, or if my sister just has some unresolved issues that she's using this as an excuse to air out. Either way, I'm stuck in this incredibly uncomfortable position where it feels like I can't make anyone happy without sacrificing something important to me. I have no idea how to navigate this anymore. Update 2. So here's where things stand after another family intervention, which, spoiler alert, solved absolutely nothing. This time my sister asked me to meet her for coffee so we could have a calm, mature discussion without anyone else pressuring us. Part of me was hopeful. Maybe she'd finally see that I wasn't trying to sabotage her happiness by naming my son Leo. Maybe we'd talk it out like adults, and she'd understand why this whole thing is so painful and absurd for me. Well, turns out I was very, very wrong. She kicked things off by handing me a typed list of compromise options she'd thought up. I'm talking actual bullet points, like she'd been plotting this for days. At first, I tried to appreciate the effort, thinking maybe there was something reasonable on there. But as I read it, I just got angrier. Her compromise options were all either completely unrealistic or downright insulting. Here's a rundown of her top suggestions. Change Leo's name to his middle name, Thomas, now, before he's fully attached to Leo. She framed it as helping Leo avoid confusion later on, which felt so condescending. She kept saying, "He's only a few months old, he won't even know." Sure, he won't know, but I do, and I'm not switching his name like it's an accessory. Agree that she and I will share the name, with me agreeing to call my son by a nickname to avoid confusion. She actually suggested I start calling him L instead of Leo, so each boy can have his own identity. The idea that I should alter my son's name just so she can use it is still baffling to me. I told her, flat out, that we didn't name him Leo so we could call him L, and that I wasn't going to strip down his name to accommodate hers. She'll name her son Leo and make peace with it if I agree to host her baby shower. I have no idea how she thinks a baby shower is relevant to this issue, but she went on and on about how it would be a show of unity if I hosted it, and how generous it would look to our family. It honestly felt like some weird guilt trip, like host her shower and put on this show of support, and in return, she gets the name. I tried explaining that a baby shower has nothing to do with why I'm upset about her trying to use my son's name, but she didn't seem to get it. After going through the list, she asked, all hopeful, "So, which one do you think will work best for us?" I was honestly speechless. I reminded her, as gently as I could, that I'd already named my son Leo because my husband and I loved the name, and that changing it now or modifying it in any way just wasn't an option. I told her again, for what felt like the millionth time, that I wasn't trying to claim the name, but that I just didn't understand why she couldn't pick something else when Leo was already taken in the family. That's when she started to get emotional. She got quiet for a moment, then said, "I just feel like this is the one thing I want that you've already taken." I was a little thrown, so I asked her what she meant by that, and she said something like, "You've always gotten everything first. The house, the husband, the baby, the perfect name." She went on about how she felt like she'd been living in my shadow for years, how it was unfair that she had to settle for second best, because I'd done everything first, and that Leo was her chance to finally have something equally special in her life. I was floored. This was obviously about way more than just a name, and suddenly I felt like I was being blamed for things I didn't even realize she was holding on to. I tried to tell her that her experience wasn't second best, and that she was putting way too much pressure on a name to fix things she was clearly upset about. But she just shook her head and said, "You wouldn't get it. You've always had what you wanted." At this point, I realized that no amount of reasoning was going to change her mind. She had this idea that I was somehow responsible for her feelings, for her sense of being second in life, and that giving up Leo would be my way of showing support. It honestly broke my heart because it felt like she was trying to turn my baby's name into a solution for her unresolved feelings about our relationship. After this conversation, things have only gotten more tense. She's gone back to Mom, telling her that she tried to work it out, but that I'm refusing to be flexible. Now, my mom's in full mediation mode, texting me every day with new suggestions for how I can make this easier for everyone. She's even gone as far as to say, "What's in a name anyway? Just think of the big picture." But to me, this is part of the big picture. I'm not going to keep stepping aside every time my sister decides she wants something I already have. I can't spend my life catering to her feelings at the expense of my own family's happiness. And then, the latest twist, my sister has apparently started telling extended family that we're both going to share the name, without ever confirming that with me. I only found out because my aunt sent me a congratulatory message saying how sweet it was that the cousins would have matching names. I had to awkwardly explain that no, actually, I wasn't planning on sharing the name and that my sister had kind of jumped the gun on that announcement. Now I'm hearing from cousins and family friends who think I'm the one making things difficult, which is exactly what I wanted to avoid. It's like she's setting up this narrative where I'm the villain in her story, the one who won't let her be happy or have her moment. My husband has suggested that we take a step back from family gatherings for a while, just to let things cool down. And honestly, I'm considering it. It feels like no matter what I do, I'm either the bad guy for not giving in, or I'm expected to sacrifice my own boundaries for someone else's peace of mind. My sister's hurt feelings have somehow turned into this family-wide issue, and I'm tired of being the one who has to fix it by giving up something important to me. I never expected that choosing a name for my son would lead to this level of drama, let alone turn into a years-old sibling rivalry that I didn't even know was simmering beneath the surface. I feel stuck between wanting to keep the peace and not wanting to set a precedent where I always have to bend to keep everyone else happy. It feels like no matter what I do, someone's going to be upset, and I don't know how to make peace with that. Part of me wants to keep fighting for Leo's name, but another part wonders if there's any way to actually come out of this with my family relationships intact. For now, I'm standing firm. But I honestly have no idea what the next family gathering is going to look like, or if I even want to be there.